dog to burst through the door and start barking any minute now. So,
are you one of those entrepreneurs who has an excellent product or service, plus a really big passion for what you do, but you aren't enjoying the level of success that you want? Or are you someone who feels frustrated working so hard and yet you have stagnant or minimal growth, falling short of your revenue goals? Well, today we're going to learn some shifts that you need to do. We're talking about 5 inner shifts for massive growth. And I'm delighted to have Sue Clement with me today to talk about just some shifts that that we all need to be aware of. I mean, you know, we've narrowed it down to 5, but probably there could be hundreds, but just for the sake of this. So the intention of my Hangout shows is to educate, inspire, and empower you. And if you're new to this Hangout, I'm Dana Smithers. I'm a certified law of attraction trainer as well as a business coach. And my clients are typically women solopreneurs who are starting out or starting over. Maybe you've been in business for a year or two and things aren't really going. Maybe you had children or circumstances change and now you need to really get your business going. So that's the type of client that I work with. And Sue has a little bit different focus than I do. So in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to have Sue introduce herself, as well as she's got some fabulous tips on shifting what's going on sometimes inside our head, or even how the way we're doing things. So Sue Clement, a big welcome to you, and tell us where you are and a little bit about yourself.
hey, I'm happy to be here today. Thanks for inviting me. Well, I am sitting here in my office in New Westminster. It's a new, well, kind of still newish to me, moving from Vancouver. And, you know, when we talk about what we do, and I loved your introduction about business owners wanting more and striving for more, and that's who I work with. I primarily work with a solo entrepreneur who is really wanting to break through that 6-figure barrier. Someone who really wants to up level their business and bring it to greater success, more success than they currently have. And I primarily work with solo entrepreneurs and people in the service sector. And it's interesting, Dana, I've been doing this for 15 years, and my God, I don't know where the time went by. But the real cool thing is I've worked with so many different industries and businesses over the years. And that's what I really love, is to be able to cross-populate ideas. You take a concept from one business and apply it to another, and really help them market themselves more effectively, more successfully, and up level their revenues. So that's what I'm all about.
Excellent. That's fabulous. And Sue, you're also the author of
Insider Secrets to Referral Success, my book here. Yeah.
Yep.
You want to know all about referrals? It is I think, the go-to guide for an easy referral formula that walks you through step by step everything you need to do to develop those referral relationships that actually deliver referrals to you.
Exactly. Perfect. And I think if you go back to my blogs or go on YouTube, you can find Sue and I did one. I don't remember what episode was, but it was all about getting referrals and how to work them, because that's the whole point. So even though Sue and I are both business coaches, our client groups, while they may be in the service industry, I like the ones starting out a little bit stuck, but Sue takes them over that 6-figure level, and that's what she does really well. But the shifts we're going to talk about today, I think we could say, Sue, that they apply to everybody.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter where you are in your business. So have a pen and paper ready, and you can start to jot some of these down. So Sue, you're going to start off with the number 1 shift. And would we say these are in the order of importance, or really?
Oh, you know, I wouldn't say they're really I think they're just 5 great shifts. You know, I thought through of looking at what makes people more successful than others, people who are really moving forward in their business quicker. What are they doing that the ones that are kind of stuck in the quagmire aren't doing?
Right.
And through the 5 that I came up with. And so I'll just jump in with the first one here.
Okay.
And this one I actually learned from a good mentor of mine, Andrea J. Lee. And she says that successful entrepreneurs have an experimental mindset.
I like that.
And it made an impact to me. You know, it's one of the lessons in life, and that I picked up from her that has greatly impacted the way I do business, how I think about my business. And really being an entrepreneur is about being tenacious, having that mental toughness.
Right.
And when you come from an experimental mindset, it shifts the perfectionism. I always want to get it right. And I'm sure I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I always want to get it right. And what happens is sometimes, and particularly as you've been in business for a while, it's harder to fail. We don't want to fail. We want to be successful. And so we begin to shrink down the things that we do because either our brain gets in the way and says, oh, well, I tried that, that won't work. Or we just don't want to look foolish. We don't want to fail. We don't want to have that tolerance level of not making it happen. And so to have an experimental mindset is really about being flexible and adaptable and staying in that learner mode. I love new entrepreneurs, and you work with a lot of them. New entrepreneurs, they are so risk tolerant. Like they'll try anything, they'll just jump in and go for it. And sometimes when we've been in business for a while, we kind of stop that. And so we don't have that willing to risk. We don't have that willing to fail. We begin to think that failure is final, and and it isn't. And so really when we think of our business and just think everything's an experiment, it makes us more adept, and just it has that kind of adventure spirit to it. One of my clients, she loved this in the Rev Up program. That was the one concept that she found really impacted her business, because after learning this concept, she's gone out there and she's tried all sorts of different things. Things that weren't working before, she's tried them again. She's done twists on and little those little fine-tuned degree shifts of differences of how you do something, and her success is just outrageous.
Oh,
and it's all because she comes from letting go, letting loose, not being worried about being perfection, and just really going for it and trying different things. And you probably have this too a lot. A client will say, well, what should I do? Well, this works. They want the perfect answer. And in business, there is no perfect answer. I can be working with 5 mortgage brokers, and if they all tried exactly the same thing, they'd all get different results. And so it's really about experimenting. What will work for one person may or may not work as well for another person, or what worked last month may not work next month. And so it's really important that we always have that experimental mindset. And when we come from that, we're more willing to just jump in and go for it. And that's where the success is.
Right. That's really fabulous one. In fact, you even had me thinking about some things that, that you said it, that as we get older, or not necessarily older, just more experience in business, that it's like, okay, well, that could cost a lot. But then if we look at, well, what happens if we don't do it? And I totally get the perfectionism. And, you and I both came out of the same corporate world, and, everything in that world was, had to be perfect, or that's how you were marked or assessed or whatever. All of that went on. So while we did learn some really good things, and we brought a lot of those to the table, I think when you're on your own, it's very different. You do become risk adverse, as you said. The longer that you've been in business, it's like, but you know what? I have to say, I tried something this year that I had been doing for a few years.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Yeah.
And I went, what? I went, what? Why aren't they signing up for this program? And for me, because I'm so law of attraction, like, how did I feel about it? I wasn't really passionate about it. And I had already said in my mind, I know we're going to talk about limiting beliefs, but I always said, well, I don't know if this is really the right program for some of these people that I talk to, right? And lo and behold, it didn't work. But the beauty of as you said, the failure isn't final. So what it's allowed me to do is actually create another brand new program that I'd had in the back of my mind for probably about a year. And so I finally just launched it. I'll talk about it at the end of the program as well. But in a way, it was, we don't feel good when we feel like we're failing, but it's not failure. It's just, I always say a mistake is just a mistake.
Yes.
So take another one.
Yeah.
And don't have to be so stuck on that. So absolutely, I agree with that. So number one, successful entrepreneurs experiment.
Have that experimental mindset at ready, and you'll Nothing's ever failure. You just keep moving forward.
Exactly. And mindset is a really key word there and everything that we're going to talk about here today. So the second shift I'm going to talk about is do less and focus more. So I have to say that I am guilty, Sue, of busy work. Because that's where that perfection comes in, right? Like I want to have all my boxes checked off for the day. And, I could have a multitude of things on an impressive to-do list. And it's like, okay, bottom line, is that really going to bring me any clients today, any money? And oftentimes when it's just busy work, the answer is no, it's not. But we say, well, I've been so busy. But then, if someone was coaching with you, they might say, well, how were your sales today, or did your revenues grow? And you go, oh no, I was so busy doing this or that or whatever. And I think, so much of that is, gets around the good time management and your own personal boundaries. As an entrepreneur, we call our shots, what hours we want to work. If the weather turns nice, if you're one of those people that decide you're going to go out during the day, well, what are you focusing on? And again, that's all around that law of attraction. If there are things that you do really well, that's what you want to focus on. And if there are things that you don't do well, and like I always say, don't do them.
Yeah.
Outsource them, right? Why are you sitting at your computer, especially working on a distribution list or doing something that send out cards? I mean, I know sometimes I'll just say, oh, I'll just whip a few off or whatever. But if you've got a big project, hire a virtual assistant for that, because that's not good use of your time. And if you looked at the money, if you translated that time actually into hours or dollars you're not making, it would be a ridiculous comparison. So that number 2 is do less and focus more. And with the time management, plan your sales days. So Sue, I know that that's a big area that you focus on. So go ahead and just add a little bit there.
Yeah, I think one of I think that busy work is the biggest thief of revenue we have.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that, I like to put it in that context, because when we see that being busy is stealing money from us, that to me, it makes my stomach feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so if I have a day that I'm just kind of doing busy work and I'm piffling away on Facebook or surfing the internet or setting up or struggling with some tech problem that just causes time, if I'm doing that stuff, I have to recognize, and when I think about it, I'm like going, it's just that busy work just stole money from me. It's a thief. It's stealing my money. Yeah. And so when I think of it from that point of view, it's really easy for me to get rid of busy work. And we do need to schedule our production days and our sales days.
Yes.
I really feel that. I mean, Dana, you are the sales manager of the organization that we work together in. And I find that when we get mixed those two up, we land up gravitating to what's easy. Water runs downhill. And often it isn't the sales kind of work that we need to be doing. So I'm really an advocate of having production time and sales time. It doesn't have to be full days, it could be chunks of time, but we need to. And the thing too is we need to track our time. Time is all we have, and it goes so fast. And we need to be aware of how much time we spend. I get a lot of my clients to do a time track for a week. And the shocker at the end of the week is always like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was spending so much time doing stuff that wasn't bringing me anything. Bringing me clients. It was just like gone. And that can totally change the way we look at things. And I finally think that entrepreneurs don't outsource enough. We think that we are cheap labor. And I think a lot of solo entrepreneurs are probably the best paid virtual assistants ever, because we're doing a VA work that we could get someone to go do for 20 or 30 bucks an hour, and instead we could be making 100 or 200 an hour or more if we are out there doing revenue generating work. So are you revenue generating, or are you busy work?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's perfect. So it's funny, you just made me laugh when you talked about the time management tracking. I had a client, I asked her to do that, and just for the week, just because I knew she was wasting a lot of time. She even when she was doing the VA type of work, she wasn't productive at it because she wasn't skilled to do it. But she said she never got to the time management because she was just too busy doing other work, but she never got to her sales calls either because she had to track what she was doing, but she was tracking what she was doing, but she didn't actually track it because she forgot to write in what she was doing. And so you can imagine what that client was like, right?
Juggling cats.
Oh yeah, yeah, we had to change some things there. And again, it just goes back to the focus, right? Like, you know, outsourcing, even if somebody's going to use Fiverr for something, or some of these that are, you know, you can have a very professional VA. And I think that's a good point too with outsourcing. Know where you can use someone like Fiverr, or where you really need to have that virtual assistant that knows your business, knows your clients, right? It's different getting something done and graphically, or someone that's dealing with your clients. Yes. Because, you know, they become the face of your brand. So it's got to be good for that one. Perfect. So Sue, you're going to talk about the inner shift number 3. No.
Yeah, number 3. I like this one. It came from the shampoo industry. How did the shampoo industry get quadruple or double their income? They said repeat. You know, shampoo your hair, rinse, repeat. And so this is the concept around this one is repeat what works. Repeat what works. Yeah. And to do that, though, well, let me just talk a little bit about why we should repeat what works. And what works today doesn't work forever. But if it's working today, do more of it. You know, it's like for every dollar I give you, you give me back 2. How many dollars do I want to give you? As much as I can possibly pull together in that moment. So if we find something that's working, you want to continue to spend time and effort and focus on doing it so that we get the yield. At one point, the yield will diminish. Then we need to find something else to get to do. But to repeat what works, though, and this is an entrepreneurial thing that a lot of people don't do, and that is we need to track our results. We need to measure everything. You know, it goes back to being that salesperson back in the trenches in the old days, is you need to know how many cold calls are going to give you, how many appointments are going to give you, how many presentations are going to give you how many clients. And when we know those numbers, then it makes it very easy for us to do. And so it's the same thing with whether we're investing on Facebook, or whether we're doing speaking gigs or webinars, or whether we're doing blogs. Any of our marketing that we do, we need to measure our results. And so create systems, really know what's working and what's not working so that you can repeat what works. I think a lot of people just jump shiny penny from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, the latest thing out there, when really, in fact, sometimes what we have is already a perfect formula. But we don't know it because we're not measuring it. And we can't be smart about making decisions if we haven't measured it and we haven't tracked it. So being able to do that really makes a difference. And then the other thing I need to call entrepreneurs out on, and I think that this is a real huge shift, and it's so common. And when I started my first business, my employment agency, I struggled greatly those first few years. I didn't want to know my numbers. I didn't want to know how much money I was not making or how much more in debt I was getting. And then, dial it forward a few years when I suddenly started making the money, I could tell you within pennies of how much I was earning. See, the thing is, when we're not making money, we all the more important that we know our numbers. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't have a clue what their profitability is. They don't know, if they're making money, if they're not making money. They just know that they don't have enough to pay their bills at the end of the month, or they do have enough to pay their bills at the end of the month, and they're struggling with that. One of my clients, she's not a number person, and not all of us are, and that's fair. But when we actually tracked, she was so excited to get a client. I said, well, how much profit is in that? She didn't know. So I asked her to go off and figure out all the cost of goods, so to speak, to deliver that service. And she realized that for like a $500 sale, she was making $16 profit.
Wow.
And it's like, we can't get excited about that $500 sale anymore because there's no money in it. Yeah. We don't want that $500 sale because it's just gobbling up our time and our efforts. So we had to completely, redo her pricing structure, streamline her systems. And what's really cool is now her rates have basically tripled. She's, in there in the market value, and she's making money, and for the same amount of work. Yeah. And if we don't know our numbers, we're possibly working for nothing. And we've got to stop doing that. So
Right.
repeat works is really about knowing numbers, measuring, tracking, really having that sense of where are you in your business so that you can set your goals, set your targets, and hit them.
Yeah, and that's really perfect, Sue, on that. And I really love what you're saying about creating the systems, because, you know, I mean, you and I in the corporate world and both in sales, we had systems and we knew exactly. And that's one thing I too find with people is they don't, like, let's just take something as simple as networking. And
Yeah.
well, referrals kind of fall into that in my opinion as well. There, you know, there's the gold mine, right? Where people go out networking and I'll ask them, okay, so that's great. You're out. What did you do and what's your follow-up system? Well, I had lunch and and I introduced myself and sometimes that's it. So again, because I'm dealing with that person that's maybe starting out, I have to work with them to get some systems going. And you know, so you don't have to be you know, I mean, I think when you have a bigger database, you want to have a CRM, a customer relationship management system. But in the meantime, if you don't, there's nothing wrong with either using Excel or just using Word, where you're actually tracking, you know, who did you see? So you can see people, right? And what was your follow-up with them? And then when are you going to follow up again? Right? Because it's that kind of system. And, you know, there's different stats on how often you have to touch someone. Is it 7 to 12 times or 12 to 20 or whatever, right? Before they actually buy from you. And sometimes if people have done something and there's no system and it works, they're going to think, okay, great, that, you know, I got a client. And it's like you said, okay, now let's take a look at what are you going to do with the next one? Oh, I'm not sure. I just lucked out there. Okay, well, we got to work on the systems, the targets, and you know, I really loved what you said about when people don't want to look at their numbers.
Yeah.
It's because it makes them feel bad. So law of attraction is all about having positive or negative vibes. And if you know what you're going to look at is going to give you negative vibes, chances are you're not going to look at it. But nothing about that is empowering. Nothing. It's better to know where are you at, and then, you know, as you said, set your goals and targets and something that's manageable for you. And then look at what are you actually paying yourself an hour, or what are you making for the sale?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, it's intriguing how we can own a business and not know our profitability. We don't even know our break even. You know, I'll talk to a client and say, well, how many transactions or how many sales or how many dollars? Put it in any measurement. I don't care what measurement, but do you know how many of whatever you need to sell to break even, let alone, you know, excel? And they don't know it. And so if that's you listening in today, please, 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 from the bottom of my heart, one of the best things you can do in your business, it's to come to, you know, it's a real, what's the phrase I'm looking for? But, you know, it's a real in-your-face moment when you look at your business and really recognize. But the cool thing is that, you know, we can't manage what we don't measure. And if we're measuring our profitability and we're measuring our revenue, and we're measuring the activity that builds that, what's really exciting is that when you see it turn around, then you know, you get rewarded.
Yeah, then you're feeling good and you're looking at the numbers, right?
Yeah. And you know how much, you know, how much you made every day. But it's really cool. In Rev Up, we have I'm going to give away a little secret. It's called high value activities, and one of the activities we do is quite literally every day. At the end of every day, before your head hits the pillow, you should be aware of how much money you made that day. What new sales did you generate that day? And if every day you have a little book and you write it in your book how many sales you made, and you write 0 so many days in a row, trust me, you're going to feel a little bit more pressured, because it's so entrepreneurs, no, you know, we're not accountable to anybody. We can just kind of like shuffle it under the rug and, you know, pretend it didn't exist. But that's a real, you know, come in your face. We need to really be upfront about it. So when we are upfront about it, we tend to take action on it.
Yeah, and I really like what you said too about you know, when we see enough zeros,
It hurts, but we do it.
Yeah, it's not going to feel good. But I think, what we're saying for anybody that's watching this is that, Sue and I have been entrepreneurs for a very long time and both came out of the corporate world. So we always had everything measured and measured and measured and measured and measured. And I have to say that I kind of revolted at that when I became an entrepreneur. It's like, hey, I mean, being a sales manager, you got to look at numbers constantly and other people's numbers. And like you said, Sue, how many cold calls, like, we'd have to do 40 cold calls a week, because that should translate into what, an A, B, or C account, right? Like, everything had a dollar amount attached to it. Every client before its name had a dollar amount attached to it. As entrepreneurs, we don't quite do that because our business is generally more personal. But as you say, you do need to know, whatever your activity is, what's the return on that investment? And it is always about time, money, and energy.
Always.
Because, if you're having clients that are absolutely exhausting, and, I think many entrepreneurs, Sue, think that they're providing a good service and they'll go above and beyond, or do, throw in a couple hours of work or something for free or something like that. And I know that you're going to talk about that a little bit later, but it's easy to do when you first start out, but what happens is you get resentful. It's like, okay, well, I did that for her, and and then she went and hired someone else, or our business ended, and I thought she was gonna, I was gonna provide another service to, and it doesn't happen. So sometimes you really have to look at your emotional investment, as well as what's going on with your time and the money, because your hours translate into time, and we only have so much time in the day. And as Sue said earlier, if you're not planning that productively, then, and you're not tracking what's going on.
Right?
And
it's interesting, these 5 shifts that I've come up with, is that if you really look at them, if you were just to pick a couple of them that you're hearing today for the listeners on the line, just pick 1 or 2 things. And if you just really focused on those, I absolutely know it would greatly impact your results 6 months from now. And what we do today, we don't necessarily, I think this is the mind trap that we get into, that mind freak. It's like, oh, I heard something, I'll go try it, and then we want that instant gratification of, where is my prize? And it's not there, and it's frustrating to us. And so we, it's hard to stay that path. And really, as a business owner, what you're doing this week, this month, you probably aren't going to notice the outcome of it for 2 or 3 or 6 months, depending upon your sales cycle.
Right.
So we have to have that tolerance to be able to stay the course for the next 3 months of doing the same thing, so that the results show up.
Right. And although we're not going to talk about it this call, but as an entrepreneur too, in the service industry, you do want to have a low point where people come in, and then your midpoint, and then something at a higher price. And everybody knows, well, if you don't, you'll be hearing about the funnel. I mean, how a funnel works, right? And there's lots of things that it is okay to do that may appear you're doing for free, or a freebie. It might be a talk or something like that, because you and I both do talks. Well, sometimes we can't always put a dollar value on that return on investment, but chances are pretty good that if you're savvy about what you're doing, you're going to be able to follow up with people, rather than just giving the hand wave and saying thanks for coming, which some entrepreneurs do when they first start out, right? Because they don't understand the value of all those, as we say, bums in seats, right? What are you going to do with all those people? So again, it gets back to systems, right? Having those systems. Do you have systems? And the 4th thing we're going to talk about here is something that's near and dear to my heart, is winning the inner game. So as Sue said earlier, she asked the question, so where do you take yourself out, right? Where do you take yourself out of the game? And with law of attraction, everything is about believing that something's possible. So there is that saying that says, if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, right? It just becomes a matter of what are you believing, and what kind of limiting beliefs are you putting on yourself? And Sue talked about failure. Well, if you only saw failure as a negative, belief that I can't do that again because I might fail, then you would never take that risk. You would never get out of that belief. It's like, well, or even saying, well, I did it last time and it didn't work. Well, maybe let's do it this time with a twist, right? But if you think it won't work, chances are it won't, right? And that was a little bit of what I had with my program, because I think I was kind of ready to do something new. And it's like, okay, well, this is a, I'm going to do this. It's a good program, but didn't have all those beliefs behind it. Like, yeah, I'm totally going to get that class filled up. So that's really important. And then Sue, I know here in the notes here, you said go on a thought diet. Tell us about that one.
It's interesting. This is something I came to me last summer. Yeah, I think it was last May. Oh my goodness, it's a whole year nearly. As you may know, several years ago, I lost 100 pounds in 6 months. And that took just constant, every blank day, every second. It was such a dedication and commitment and tenacity for me that quite literally, I swear every hour, every couple minutes, I was thinking about what I was eating or not eating, or what I was exercising or not exercising. And it took such focus. And then last summer, I actually went and did a kind of a half-day personal workshop with horses. I did one of those horse things. What do the horses tell you? I can't even describe it very well now. But it was really interesting because what came up was about what am I thinking about? And I recognized, I thought, it's like going on a thought diet. We talk about being positive and really having, what we think about, we attract more of. And so if you think that things are tough and hard and you're failing, you're just going to see more tough, hard failing. And how do we shift that? And so that's the coin that I came up with. The phrase I came up with, I need to go on a thought diet. So when I think these negative thoughts, these limiting thoughts, these like, I tried that last month and it didn't work, or no one's going to buy my blank, or I'm going to walk in and I'm going to make a fool of myself, or whatever these thoughts that we all have about ourselves in our businesses. But, so I thought we have to go on a thought diet. We have to kind of exercise them out of our brain, basically. Yeah. And so that's what I always kind of coined in my phrase is, what am I thinking? Am I thinking healthy thoughts? Like, am I eating healthy food? Am I putting that good stuff in? And if I'm not, then I need to go on a physical diet, but I also need to go on a thought diet.
Yeah,
that's so perfect. That's what I mean by that. And it's intriguing. I mean, this is right up your alley, and I'm always, intrigued by this, because how do we keep that positive thinking when our life may be crumbling around us? Maybe when we have personal issues and relationship issues and financial issues and family issues. How do we do that, Dana? Tell me, what's your thought diet secret?
All right, that's a perfect one that I can move into. So what Sue is saying is absolutely right. Whatever we're focusing on, and even sometimes with a diet, I'm sure what Sue learned was put in your body what's nutritious, right? That's a whole thing. Here's the choice, this or this, right? Well, with law of attraction, this is how it works. Everything starts with our words. So whatever your words are, your words are going to form your thoughts. And from those thoughts, if you're saying that this is a great idea, I haven't tried this before, but I'm going to try this in my work, chances are the vibe that you're feeling there is going to be very positive, and that's what gives you your result. Now, we always say in the law of attraction, if you want a different result, you got to go back and change the words.
Yeah.
So if everything starts with your words, everything is your words, even though the words and thoughts are important, the most important thing is the vibe. And there's only two types of vibes. Actually, I've got them right here because I'm doing another show. We're either feeling this or we're feeling this.
Yeah.
There's nothing in between. And I always say, if you're looking to do something and you say, oh, I don't know if I want to do it, it's either a yes or it's a no. If it's a maybe, it's a no.
Yeah.
When it's a yes, you know it, because we have an internal guidance system, and that is called our gut feeling. So we know when we're doing it. Same with you, if you wanted to talk about, is this a good client for you? And in the beginning, no question, I took anybody with a pulse and a checkbook. As I didn't know any different, right? In the beginning, but that one that you go, oh, I shouldn't have taken it. Oh my goodness. They become your worst nightmare, and everybody will tell you the same thing. So the sooner that you can say, nah, that's not my ideal client, you're going to get a different result. But if you're saying in your head, nah, I really need the money, he or she probably is going to cause me a lot of challenges, and I don't really feel great about it, but I'll get the money. But when you get here, was that worth it? Because, we talk about emotional energy, right? It's not just about that. So this is how everything begins. And I'm just going to grab if you want to know a little bit more about it, you can just go to my website and download this.
Cool.
This is the power of your words. And it's because I am a sacred gift is teaching. I can't help but do that. So it's actually got that diagram in here, but it explains it in great detail. And then there's other words that you have to be aware of, and there's tips. But another quick thing on that, Sue, winning that inner game. When we look at the way we actually get to what we want, the clarity, is by knowing what we don't want. So just in business, right? I talked about that client. Have a few clients like that, and all of a sudden you're going to have a big don't want this, don't want this, don't want this. So we only want to focus on that briefly because we don't want to spend a lot of time in it. But then we're going to go into clarity. Okay, this is a type of client that I want. And so when you get those feelings, we have in the law of attraction what's called a reset vibe button. So to reset that vibe, which is being negative for you, you're always going to ask yourself, so what do I want, right? Whether it's, whether you're looking at your sales system, you're looking at your client, you're looking at your productivity, you've got to do some time management. It's what you said in that do less and focus more, right? With law of attraction, if you've got 10 plates you're juggling and this bright shiny object, oh, I heard somebody tried that over there, or I heard that if I do Google Hangouts, I'm going to get high on the SEO rankings, and I'll do some YouTube videos. But you know what? You just can't do all those things. So Sue said it best: find some things that you want to focus on, and take that approach and do those well. Right, Sue? That just we don't want to provide every type of service under the sun to our clients. That would be foolishness.
Oh, but it's the trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should create a board game. All these traps, all these hidden little traps.
Oh, that's a good one. Actually, we can do that. Hey, let's do that. Right? Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. A bright, shiny object came before us during the call. But yeah, it's true. And you could see someone else that's very successful. And I always say, what I like to say to my clients, if they really admire someone, we always want to be inspired by other people. People that we see doing something that maybe we'd like to do. But the idea is to model them. You don't want to copy them, and you're never going to be them. So I think that when you talk about, where do you take yourself out? I see a lot of people comparing themselves to someone else in a similar business, right, Sue?
Oh my God, that really hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Comparing ourselves. It's interesting. I guess it was about 2009 or 10. I joined a big mastermind, a big one. Yeah. Okay. And I thought, great, I'm just going to put my footsteps into that person's footsteps and follow along. I just had this vision that I could do that too. And there's a saying is that, you get your ducks in a row, right? So I got all my ducks in a row with this program, and I turned around, they weren't my ducks. They were turkeys and goblins. They're anything but my ducks. And what is interesting. We can learn from, that was a big lesson for me in life, is to learn from mentors,
Yep.
emulate them, but it needs to still be our path, because they won't be your ducks. They'll be somebody else's ducks. So it's important that it's always about your ducks.
Well, that's a good one. I'm going to have to find a picture of some ducks. I'll put with this part.
Right.
Yeah, it's true, right? Because if you're just copying and you're not really feeling like it's yours, then yeah, that's kind of funny, turkeys and whatever. All right. 5 inner shifts, and we're on to number 5 now. This is a really good one. So Sue, let's have this final one.
This is an interesting one. I haven't really talked about actually all of these 5 shifts. So there's something they've been the undercurrent in my coaching and in my business, and I've never really surfaced them before until just recently. And number 5 is be smart about money. Be smart about money. I find that, just like the outsourcing, someone will work like a dog being a VA, just paid VA. We as entrepreneurs, often we don't have an investing in ourselves and investing in our business mindset. We think we can't afford. That's the first things that come out of people's mouth. Oh, I can't afford that. It's like, wait a minute. We have to be smarter about what we can and can't afford. There's lots of things we say we can't afford, but are really essential to our business. We can't afford not to do them. And there's a lot of things we spend our time on, because when we first start off, we tend to have more time than money. And then as we get more successful, we'll end up having more money than time. And so there's that shift. But we really need to have that investing in ourselves mindset. We have to look at, what does our business need? We can't do it all alone. We can't do it in a vacuum. We need vitamins for our business, whether it's a course or a webinar or a book. We need outside information, because if you try and grow your business in a vacuum, you will struggle. It will take you way, way longer than it needs to be. So invest in yourself. The other thing that, when I had my first business, it was an employment agency. And I grew from startup to a $5 million company before selling it. And when I started out, I was frugal and I was cheap. I went to an auction and I, bought all my furniture for my office on an auction. I mean, I was swinging from my fingernails on a shoestring. I did everything on a shoestring. And we grew the business on a shoestring. And those first I seriously got about almost $200,000 in debt the first couple of years. And then I dug myself out of it in 18 months, which was a nice, fast turn.
Wow, yeah.
But what was interesting is, whether you're talking about hitting 100,000 or $1 million or more, what I realized was at one point I was making decisions as if I was still making a little bit of money. And so putting it in the context for most solo entrepreneurs is that you can't make decisions for a $100,000 business with a $30,000 mindset.
Yeah.
And when we think that way, when we make decisions as if we're that little tiny struggling shoestring business, we're not going to make great decisions. We're not going to be investing in our business. We're not going to be taking those risks and investing in services and tools that can help us grow faster.
Right.
We tend to shrink ourselves, and in doing so, we hold ourselves down and back. And so if you want that $100,000 business, you need to have a mindset of a $100,000 business, because you need to make decisions from that perspective. And yes, I think people can be too cheap.
Yeah.
And when we're too cheap, it's hurting ourselves. It's like that old thing, cutting off our nose to spite our face.
Yeah.
And people do it every day, all the time. And it just rips my heart out, because I think it's really limiting their success. And it's an inner game. It's an inner decision to do that.
Right. Yeah. I think that's really one of the biggest ones that's so important. We talk about good debt versus bad debt, or I also like to say, what's a good investment for you? Because, I know I'll be talking with someone and I'm really excited, really want to coach them, because I can really, they don't know what they don't know, right? Oftentimes. So, I haven't created a $5 million business, but I've had not $6 million business, a 6-figure business, which I was very proud of, and I grew it, and I loved doing that. But when I started out, I didn't have a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the biggest thing. And even I say to people, I don't care if you hire me or somebody else, but you don't know what you don't know. So, then I'll talk with someone and they're all excited, and then I'll quote my rate for the investment, which I feel is very, very fair, and they say, oh well, I can't afford that. And the thought that always comes in my head is, you can't afford not to, right? You can't afford not to make an investment. As I say, I don't care if it's in me or somebody else, but that's a good, if that's a debt for you, that's a good debt, because by the time we work together, you're going to be finding other clients and you're going to be making money. So, but if you don't do it, if you keep doing what you're doing, we know that's the definition of insanity and expecting a different result, right? So it doesn't happen that way. So I really like that, be smart about money. And yes, you can be too cheap. You're not going to go to a particular networking event or something where you could make some good contacts because it costs what, 30, 40, 50, $60?
Yeah.
So that's,
it's crazy, some of the decisions we make that are money based, that are limiting our success, and we're not aware of it. And it takes that risk. Of course, you need to leverage when you make an investment. If you take a course or go to a networking event or whatever you invest in, you need to follow up. You need to actually squeeze that lemon, get all that juice out of it, so that you do get the value out of it. But it is really about being smart about what's your return on your investment. It goes back to that saying, for every dollar I give you, if you give me $2 back, how many dollars do you want to give me? Well, you want to give a lot of money if you're going to get it back. And so we have to be convinced that we will do the work we need to show up to get the money back. That's the thing. If you want to go to a networking event or to a workshop or a conference that's going to cost you some money, you have to be convinced that you're not just going to hide out in the bathroom, that you're actually going to network, you're going to connect with people, you're going to follow up with people, you're going to do all the things you need to do to really make it work for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't. And so invest in yourself, and your business will help you grow faster, farther.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point about if you with law of attraction, set your intention, whether you're going to that smaller networking group or you're going to some big event that's a conference 3 days or whatever, go with an action plan, go with a goal of meeting X number of people a day. I mean, if you think that's going to be one big party, well, that's probably the result that you're going to get. But, there's time for partying, but there's also time for working. So we're just going to wrap this up, Sue, and I know you've got a wonderful program coming up. Very, very exciting. I've looked at it. I think it looks fabulous. And I know you ran this, I think earlier this year or last year?
I did it a couple times. I did it the first Rev Up. It's called Rev Up Your Business. It's a mastermind retreat. And we launched that last year in June. And we've done it again last fall. And now it's spring and we're doing it again. And
great.
I have such a passion for this because it's such a cool program. We come together. It's a mastermind retreat, small group, intimate. You get like 20 hours of me upfront and personal, as I say. It's funny, the first time I did it last year, on one of the breaks, I was walking down the hall and I thought, if I could do this every day for the rest of my life, I would be that person. It was just like, I love it. The transformations that happen in the room are why I love it so much. It's exciting when I see people shifting the way they think and what they do, and they're empowering themselves in their business, and then they come out of it and they really go for it. Whether you've been in business for a little while or been in business for a long while, it's an opportunity for you to step out of your business and work on it. The Stephen Covey 7th habit, the woodsman's in the woods, sawing down the tree, laboring away at it, and a hiker comes by and says, "Woodsman, I think you should stop and sharpen your saw." The woodsman says, "I don't have time. I have to cut down this tree." And the thing is, Rev Up is a perfect opportunity for people, business owners, to step out of their business and sharpen their saw. We spend so much time working in the business that we don't work on it. And so Rev Up, I'm inviting people to come work with me on your business for 2.5 days. It's April 13, 14, and 15. The first 2 days are 9 to 5. We give you a great healthy lunch, continental breakfast. And then on Friday, it's 9 till 1, so you can kind of kick off early on the weekend and process what you've done and type things. The the cool thing is the first day we really spend a lot about the inner game of business. Some of the concepts we talked about today, we expand on those. You actually get to apply them to yourself, your life, and your business. The second day we talk about the outer game of business, and the third day everyone creates their own personalized implementation plan.
Oh, nice.
So everyone leaves with a plan of action. So they know exactly what steps they need to do personally to grow their business and move forward. And then one thing I'm all about application. You know, information without application is just entertainment.
Yeah.
And so, you know, or training without coaching is entertainment. So everyone gets a coaching session with me, a private one-on-one session, 4 to 6 weeks after Rev Up. So I want to make sure that you still have your hands on the steering wheel and the foot on the gas, and you're moving forward with your business.
Perfect.
So that's a little bit about Rev Up. It's a small group. There'll be about 10 people in the program, 3 days upfront and personal. It's not just content. It is really lots of workshop type style environment. You'll be working in pairs and small groups, big groups with me. I coach people from start to finish all 3 days.
Excellent. Excellent. And how can they find that? The URL website?
They can find it here. I made it simple. I'm following your model here.
Good. Okay.
I feel like I'm drunk when I'm doing this. There, I'll just stop right there. I think that worked.
Yeah,
RevUpYourBusiness.com. RevUpYourBusiness.com. You go to the website, you'll see that the price is $12.97, the investment. And what I offer on the webinar is normally a discount down to $6.97, but for Dana, for your community, if people enter the code Dana, D-A-N-A, you can see right there, I'll even reduce the price. I want to make no barriers to entry.
Wow.
I want people in the program. It'll be $497.
Wow.
3 days, meals
That's
included,
amazing.
lots of coaching, lots of support. It will transform your business. The feedback and the testimonials from past participants are just, you know, at the end of every day, we have a little debrief on what were the takeaways. And I quite literally, I'm almost near tears sometimes, because it just blows my heart up when I hear people re-engaging in their business and re-engaging in their lives, and they're excited about what they're doing, and they feel like they have control, and they feel empowered and ready to go back out in their business and do it differently. It is just so cool. One of the fall participants, she feels that she's been able to close more business just on what she learned on the second day.
That's great.
You know, when you think about that, more money, more performance, more clarity, that's what Rev Up's about.
And less stress, right? Less stress in our business for that.
Oh, yeah.
So that's great. So RevUpYourBusiness.com coupon code. That's an amazing price, Sue.
$497.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I will make sure that goes up in the post that I do as well. That's fabulous. All right. So just one last thing that I will just let people know about is a new online recorded program that I have. This is one of the programs that I decided to do because people sometimes couldn't make the time frames that I had, whether it was 4 sessions at Wednesday at 9 or whatever. I thought, you know what, I really want to do a recorded program so people could listen to this anytime, learn at their own pace. It's all in the Google Hangout. So you can go to danaSmithers/programs and /law-of-attraction and check it out. And the beauty of this program is that right now it's $97.
Woohoo!
So we talk about investment, Sue.
Yeah.
I always feel if people can't make that investment to learn how to manifest more of what they want and less of what they don't want, then they need to listen to this program over and over and over, right? All right. So we've gone a little bit over time, but it's all good information. So thanks so much, Sue Clement of SueClement.com. You can find her there and check out the Rev Up for Business program. That's it for now.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.